But do you think, Roy, if this United team that's starting here tonight was playing every week, that they would be in the same position?
Well, I don't know. That's obviously Garnacho. You think he might come in for the final next week, but obviously it's not on this manager's watch. They've lost 17 league games. They lost 14 league games last year, so it's not a difficult few months to have where you go into European competition with injuries. This has been going on for since last season. So this group, they don't know how to compete week in, week out. So you can sit here and go, well, if they had all their best players available, but injuries and suspensions is part of the demands of being a top footballer. This is the bit that I don't get. I think when you're playing for the big clubs, there's a reason why you're playing for a big club. Obviously, you think you're good enough, but that you turn up week in, week out. That's the sign of a great player to me, greatness. And I look at these players, and it's every week they don't seem to, they don't know how to compete. The demands of playing for Man United. And again, to lose that many games this year, you could write this off and go, okay, listen, it happened. But it's on the back of 14 league game defeats last season. So they've got into extremely bad habits. And I think the manager, he's a very likeable guy, he's very honest, and he seems to be the biggest critic. But I think his head must be spinning. I reckon he can't wait to get to the summer. Obviously, fingers crossed they get into Europe. They win
of course, he didn't want to start until the summer.
No, and you could see why. He was probably thinking, listen, I don't want to go into that mess just yet. Yeah, he probably looked at it, but obviously United said, we want you now. And obviously it's going to be a big summer coming up, but we've said that the last few summers. We say that for most clubs. Recruitment is key, getting the right players in, the right characters, and getting lads out. But I think he'll obviously be glad to see the back of this season. I think, listen, his head must be spinning from day one. When you look at his first game at Ipswich, they drew, they could have lost that game, and I bet he's thinking, what is going on here? I've come into Man United. Maybe he was expecting a lot more from these players. And he's mentioned during the week as well the players training and bad habits and the messages coming up about this group of players.
He was angry last week.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good message. And I'm going back to the last month or two where some of the games they've just written off. They've said, no, but we'll focus on next week. I've never heard so much chat from a club about next week's game. Again, what about the game today? It'll be interesting how they turn up tonight. They've got a final next week. You'd like to think there might be one or two places up for grabs, or you want some momentum to go into the final, whether you get momentum from one game, I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see their mentality tonight in terms of compete with Chelsea, who Chelsea have a lot to play for tonight more than United in terms of league.
They are creating unwanted records this season. They've already managed a couple, and there's a couple more within their grasp. The fewest wins, points, and most defeats. They will all be set this season. They are 7 behind the fewest goals they've ever scored, and 5 from also making it the worst defensively season. And if they don't win either this week or next at home to Aston Villa, it will be if they don't win tonight, it'll be their most without a win as well. There'll be scars, Jamie, from those records. But do you think a summer of overhaul, he changed 12 players in his first summer at Sporting Lisbon. Is it going to take that sort of number again to get this football club back on the right track?
But that's not going to happen in one window, because you can't just, in a day and age, you can't say, look, you can leave now, because players want paying up with their contracts. There's going to a lot that's going to go into that.
Does that have to be almost a policy?
Possibly,
even if it does cost them.
But it's going to take time. And I think what they've done in the past is they've just gone for the quick fix. Maybe, OK, there's a couple of players there, they'll do us, they'll fix it, we'll plug a few gaps, and then all of a sudden we're going to be fine. It doesn't work like that. You need to make sure you've got to bring in the right players, the right people that are going to change the culture. Roy said it there. When he talks about in training, the training's not been good or things aren't right on the training field, you have no chance. People have to set good examples every day. The senior players have to set the right examples. So something has to change in that respect. But I do think, I don't know, I like him. I think he talks. Sometimes his honesty gets in his own way because he just wants it so badly. You can see that. But there is something about him that I like. I think he will get it right, and they have an opportunity to still get Champions League football even after this disastrous season. So they can make it end up being an OK season. Never going to be good enough for Manchester United. You should never lose 17 games in a season at a club of that enormity. But this is going to take a lot of time. And they need to. You can't also keep just sacking managers. I never once believed in Eric Ten Hag was the man that was really going to take the club forward. But for whatever reason, I look at him and I think, yeah, he has something about him.
At some point, bro, he's going to have to win games, isn't he?
Yeah, you got to win the odd game. That does help. And when you're moving players on from Sporting Lisbon, I'm pretty sure they want on 200 or 300 grand a week.
Exactly, yeah.
That's the challenge for him as well. If he's trying to move the big hitters on, they'll just be sitting there, and rightly so, they're under contract. But you've got to win the odd game. Again, we look at them stats. Again, if you're a player in that dressing room, and them stats, obviously, they'll be thrown at you week in, week out. I just think, what must the players be thinking? What must be the vibe be in the dressing room? There must be I go back, they must be embarrassed by it. But obviously they've got that get out of jail card.
Can you imagine being in a Manchester United dressing room where defeat was acceptable? Which it is felt like that has been the case in recent weeks.
I make the point about competing, and people always talk about my time in the dressing room, but I was in other dressing rooms. I was in Nottingham Forest. I was in an Irish dressing room for years. I was a Celtic. I played for other teams. But what you want in your dressing room is a group of players. They're going to go back to good habits. You can't win every week. But what I don't get over the last month or two, when I've seen them up in Newcastle, is the lack of fight. They're not competing. You can forgive players having a bad time. You can forgive players for teams for losing. Of course, that's the name of the game. But my goodness, when you have the manager coming out most weeks saying, again, the manager scratching his head. He's working with him closely. Again, I go back to it. I reckon when he came from Lisbon, and he said that basically in his first week when he done the Ipswich match, saying he's never done so many media interviews. I think his head's spinning from the demands of being a Man United manager, and I reckon he's looking at these group of players, and I know he's been positive a little bit there about looking forward to next season, but not with this team. Don't think for 1 minute this team's going to be top 4, top 5. Not with the habits they've got. They've got some quality. We see Bruno there. But forget about United competing.
So it's culture. It's culture.
Well, it has to be part of it, of course.
So how long does it take then to change that culture, and how long?
And better players.
And how long can a manager go without winning games? It's 3 wins in 24 matches that he's had against teams that are going to be in the Premier League next season.
Yeah, that tells you, no matter what the culture you're going to like, you need better players. You need 1 or 2. I like Bruno. I think he's a player that you can build the team around. I mean, Mason Mount has been ravaged with injuries. Is he the player that's going to make a difference in this squad? Maybe you're certainly going to give him next year, that's for sure.
But Jamie,
there's others you already know that
full
aren't good
season.
enough.
He gets the full season.
Yeah, but gets the full season. But there's others you know they're not going to be.
But
good
I ask you, when you talk about the culture, and it rolls off our tongue here, the culture. What are the senior players doing? That's why I point the finger at Bruno and these other players, not their talent.
Doesn't the culture actually start higher than that, though?
No, I think it comes from the senior players. Oh, listen, I sound like Graham
The leadership.
Souness. Yeah, it comes from that. Yeah, but the group, the dressing room senior players run the show. That's what you do. That's why they're so important. That's why people say you need good senior players who've got good habits. We've spoken about players at other clubs over the years, people like Gerrard or Lampard here, great quality, but they drive the quality in training, how you prepare for training. You don't let people off the hook. When the manager's coming out, like you said earlier, going, oh, I'm not getting good vibes in the training, you're like, well, what is going on at the training ground? Because you have to train how you play. Don't think for 1 minute you can take it easy on a Monday to Friday and turn up on a Saturday and expect to perform at this level. It doesn't happen. The odd player can do it. People like Messi and Ronaldo can maybe do it the odd time. But the top teams turn up every day and train properly. And that is driven, it's not driven by the younger players, trust me, because they're learning their trade. It's driven by the senior players.
And the standards, yeah.
The standards in training, of course.
1 or 2 of those senior players, as you've seen, are back in the starting lineup tonight.